Hello there, everyone, and welcome to our event today. Thank you so much for taking time to join us for this webcast. P&C Carriers, Better Speed to Market and Regulatory Compliance with ISO ERC. This is sponsored by MajescoMastek, also broadcast by Insurance and Technology, UBM TechWeb, and United Business Media, LLC. My name is James Hilliard. Glad to be on board as the host for today's event. A couple announcements as we get started here. First and foremost, we do have a couple polls that we're going to be sharing with you. Those are going to transition between a couple of our speakers today. When those polls come up on the screen, love for you to participate. In turn, we'll share those results with all of you to see where your opinions stack up to others that are on to call today. As far as Q&A, you can ask your questions anytime during the event. Type your question into that Ask a Question area. Click that Submit button. That'll get you in the queue. I do recommend you have your pop-up blockers turned off at this point to take advantage of our entire console, including downloading a copy of these slides. You can click on the Information button. That's where you can get a PDF of the slides today. Our Flex console is a console where you can move and adjust things, resize windows, do so by dragging the corners of those windows, so feel free to make this look and feel how you would like it today. And finally, a little plug for our survey. We'll push it out at the end. You can also access it from the Information button, but a short little feedback form. We love to get that feedback from all of you so we can continue to bring you quality webcasts here on a regular basis. With that, I do want to move on to our presentation here today and introduce you to the three individuals that are with us. We're going to be kicking things off with Karlyn Carnahan, the principal with Novarica. She is really focused on things like research and writing about the market, puts reports out there on claims core systems, on reinsurance, as well as Web 2.0. Widely recognized expert is Karlyn on these topics and has presented at numerous conferences and conducted numerous vendor selection projects for many U.S. insurers out there. So Karlyn's going to kick things off for us for about 12 minutes or so. Mark Sheehan will join us then, the Assistant Vice President with ISO. And you know ISO is a technology and business process management company. He's a pro with 25 years of proven insurance industry experience in IT, business systems analysis, and consulting. Right now, Mark is responsible for the ISO Rating Solutions Division, which includes ISO Rating Service, ISO electronic rating content, and ISO circular tracking extract products. And he'll join us in the middle of our presentation, and then we'll be followed up from one of our sponsor companies, MajescoMastek, where Manoj Porwal will join us, product manager there. He is the product manager for STG Insurance Suite and has overall ownership of all aspects of product management and product development. In his current role, he provides the critical link between the customers out there and the product organization to really design and deliver better products, and he'll be sharing some stories with us later on in our presentation. So again, to all of you that have joined us, welcome. Again, those questions and comments is what I will be looking at, and we'll mix some in probably as we go along through the prezzo. Also have carved out about 10 minutes for Q&A towards the end. So, Karlyn, with that, what I want to do is officially welcome you, turn things over so we can really dive into our presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jim. I am Karlyn Carnahan. I work with a firm called Novarica. As you mentioned, we are a research firm. We work as advisors to senior executives in the insurance industry and publish research on business trends, technology trends, peer group behaviors. We get our research from the Novarica Research Council, which is a community of over 300 CIOs representing well over 300 insurance carriers. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you some of the research that we've been doing, some of which has not even been published. So this first slide shows some research which has not yet been published. Oops, I've gone too far. Hold on. We have surveyed our carriers. There we go. We've surveyed our carriers around the 2013 priorities. And as I said, this research has not been published yet. And one of the questions we asked is, what is it that is driving the investment in IT for 2013? What's driving your budget? We've broken it out here based on small property carriers, property casualty carriers. Those are under $100 million in revenue. The mid-size are $100 million to $1 billion. And that dark blue is over $1 billion. And what you see is that The most common priority that's driving IT for 2013 is business intelligence, and right after that is customer ease of doing business. But look at number 3 and number 4, speed to market for product changes and speed to market for true new products. So when you're looking at what's driving carriers, what capabilities they're trying to achieve, much of what's on the top of their mind is speed to market for product development. So, of course, the question then is, why is this such a big problem for them? And it's because it is extremely costly. Let's talk, first of all, about what it takes to create a new product from scratch. It's labor-intensive, many moving parts requiring multiple skills, whether it's developing the language, understanding what the rating algorithm should be, defining the rates, creating the underwriting requirements, creating the filings, and, of course, getting it into the system. Simply assuring that the language complies with all the regulatory outcomes is extremely labor-intensive, takes very high-level people, and a lot of collaboration. And that collaboration piece is part of what adds to the time frame. Now, because of this complexity, many carriers out there use ISO as the base for the regulatory and legal language, which certainly helps improve the time frame needed for analysis. But even with that help and support, it takes, typically most carriers, it takes them between 14 and 18 months to get a new product to market. And when you look at the actual cost, it's about $600,000 on average to develop an average complexity product. And that's a staggering amount of money. About 15% of that is going into product investigation, the preliminary development. And then another 50% is building out the actual product, getting it ready for the filing, getting it into IT. About 35% is IT related. So the problem is that it's easy to identify the system changes needed, and you can draft the requirements, but then getting it into the system, the coding, the testing, the release process, carriers tell us that that's typically about 6 months, and in some cases as long as 15 months. So the two biggest pieces of the cost for a new product is the analysis, developing the product, getting it into the system. And I'm going to point out this collaboration piece because getting the collaboration and sign-off takes about 20% of the time and about 23% of the cost to develop a product. So if you could simply reduce the amount of time needed to collaborate with each other, a 10% reduction would cut a month off of the work time. So some pretty amazing numbers on the new product development, developing from scratch. But let's talk about maintenance, because that's really where most carriers are spending much of their effort, is maintaining products. And that also is complex and labor-intensive, and many use ISO as a base. But speed to market is important because as the market changes, as competitors change their behavior, carriers need to be able to respond quickly in order to take advantage of these market changes. And the problem is that although many use ISO as the base, most carriers are unable to respond to ISO revisions on the effective date. Partly because the level of analysis is pretty high. It requires senior level staff across multiple functions, whether it's claims or underwriting, whether it's general counsel or regulatory affairs. So coordinating this analysis, coordinating the response, what should we be doing? Should we do it in every state for every product? Very demanding. Getting it into the system, really hard for those who are on older systems. Particularly those where the changes are hard-coded in, and those are the ones that have the hardest time. And let's talk about the volume of changes, because the ISO, manages every product in every state and releases an average of 70 circulars a week. So that's an enormous amount of information that carriers have to be able to analyze. Now, the good thing is that ISO has delivered a number of different solutions which really have a positive impact on carriers, can really reduce the amount of time needed for analysis, and can reduce the amount of time needed to get the information into the system. So we're going to talk about the electronic rating support. That, frankly, though, not all carriers are in a position where they can take advantage of those changes. So vendors are now starting to come up with solutions that can take advantage of the electronic rating content, which, again, will help to streamline the time. When you think about some of the challenges that carriers have, first major challenge is just getting the changes into the policy admin system. And for many carriers, when they look at how complex and how difficult it is, they actually look at how long will it take IT, and that has an impact on whether or not they choose to take the change. So even if the change might be a terrific one, even if it might be very beneficial, if it's going to be too much work for IT, they end up holding back on some of the changes. Sometimes they'll bundle them up and try and do them all in one fell swoop, but again, it means that a carrier is not getting the advantage of the change on the effective date. Sometimes carriers have more than one system that a change needs to be made in. A change might be made on a property rating territory, for example, and you may have one system for commercial lines, a different system for BOP, maybe another system for ag. So these changes compound. As mentioned, those with older systems, they have a very tough time. The algorithms are coded in, the rates are coded in, forms attachment rules are all hard-coded in. And simply understanding what the impact of these changes are, very time-consuming. Gosh, what was the old ISO rate? What is the new ISO rate? Wait, we're deviated from that. What is the impact going to be on our book of business? Will we have any particular customers that are hit very heavily? And how does that change what we choose to do with the ISO circular? Managing the implementation is a project, lots of input, lots of tasks, lots of number of functional areas, and frankly, simply managing the filing package, very time-consuming for many, many carriers. So how long does this typically take? The survey shows, the study of many carriers shows that on average, it takes a carrier about 9 months from the day that they get the circular to the day that it's live, ready to go in the system. So this is the problem, right? Because a circular comes out, and they typically give you 6 to 9 months before the effective date. They give you that warning. But if it takes you 9 months to get it into the system, this is a challenge because you need to notify customers when things are changing. You need to notify them 60, 90 days in advance of the renewal. So even if you get it done on the 9 months, you're still 2 to 3 months behind. So this is why most carriers that we spoke with are typically about 2 ISO revisions behind. And again, this means that they're not taking advantage of regulatory changes, language changes. They're not taking advantage of rate changes or algorithm changes in order to keep up with the competition. Now, one other thing kind of interesting about this, the estimates of how much it costs of ISO circular start to finish that results in a form change or a rate change that requires a filing, it's about $135,000. That's expensive. The most expensive part is that analysis. What does this mean? Interpreting the ISO circular. And the second most difficult part and second most expensive part is the system update. So if a carrier can streamline the process of analyzing and interpreting the ISO change, and if a carrier can simplify the process of loading the system with the update, 2 major benefits happen. First of all, you can get that speed to market and get those product changes more quickly. And second of all, you can cut a lot of the cost involved. Just a couple of other challenges when it comes to product development. Products are going to continue to change, and they're going to continue to change very frequently because carriers are trying to grow their book of business. And in order to do that, they're differentiating by coming out with new products. They're trying to identify better rating mechanisms. We're seeing multivariate rating plans. We're seeing different levels of underwriting, specialized forms. As carriers have new policy admin systems or are working on business intelligence, which you saw was the #1 priority, that access to data means that carriers can spend more time coming up with better product ideas and grounding them in the data, in the facts, so that they can develop higher levels of profitability. Being able to easily collaborate with others, this is a very critical requirement for speed to market. As pointed out, simply cutting the cost of collaboration, the time of collaboration by 10% can cut a whole month out of the process. And much of that collaboration is spent explaining, interpreting, discussing what is the impact of this change, of this product. Speed to market, critical. One of the critical things that carriers are focusing on that. And beyond that, flexibility is more and more a critical component for carriers. Being able to very rapidly change a product, very rapidly change a price, very rapidly change an underwriting rule. And in order to do all of this, the ability to manage ISO easily is a key capability that carriers require. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to talk with Mark Sheehan about, well, what is it exactly that ISO electronic rating content is providing? How is that helping to cut the cost and help the time? So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Karlyn. Karlyn's going to hang on board. Some questions are already coming in from you out in the audience, so keep those coming to us. Before we invite Mark on here, I do want to bring up one of those first polls that we had planned here. So that's going to come up for all of you right now. And we're asking, you kind of saw that pie chart related to costs. Well, we're asking you now, what is the most time-consuming product maintenance activity from the ones that are listed below? Is it analyzing and interpreting those circulars, modifying the forms and rates, updating the system? Is it going out there and creating and managing the filings, or is it the training and other implementation tasks related to that? So those are the options there. Again, as you take a quick moment to vote on that poll, we'll give you about probably 30 more seconds on that. Let me call out to Ganesh. We see you and Meredith, John as well, with questions that have been coming into our queue, so we're prioritizing those and working through those on the back end. And definitely we'll come back to them during our Q&A session towards the end of our presentation. So, folks, you can keep your questions coming into us here. And, again, Karlyn's going to hang out, and she will rejoin us for the Q&A in just a little bit. Majority of you had a chance to vote here on the poll. Let me give you about 5 more seconds, and we'll close that out and share the results so you can see where others are here. And let me do that right now with the results coming out to everyone, seeing about 38% of you saying, yeah, that analyzing and interpreting the circulars, that is the most time-consuming, tied up there with updating the system, and then you see the other numbers coming in here. And I think those actually kind of track back to the pie chart shown by Karlyn in terms of costs associated with those, and that would make sense. The more time you're spending on analyzing and interpreting them, the more cost there, as Karlyn had pointed out. So appreciate you. We'll have another poll here coming up in a few moments, but we do want to move on with Mark Sheehan, Assistant Vice President with ISO. And Mark, let me turn things over to you so we can continue the conversation.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, as Karlyn very keenly illustrated, there are significant challenges with the initial development, certainly, and with the ongoing maintenance. And ISO was asked, is there something you can do to help? And fortunately, the answer is yes. We do have a number of products that can help in this regard, but today we're going to focus on a keen product called ISO Electronic Rating Content, or ISO ERC. So before I get into the details of electronic rating content, I do want to give a little bit of context. Now, I'm not sure that you're all going to read this slide. It does get a little bit small, the font, but I can walk through it, and it provides a very, I think, good illustration of what the rating products are that ISO offers. It starts with their 4 products. There's the ISO manuals, ISO integrator, ISO electronic rating content, and ISO rating services. You see the products from left to right. Now, everyone, well, I assume many people on the phone are familiar with the ISO manual. Okay? It all starts with the ISO manual. So the ISO manual is the narrative description of the line of business, whether it's commercial auto, general liability, personal auto, whatever it is, where it's it's a book, if you will, with words, paragraphs, tables, and charts. And in there, it's a wealth of information about how that program is, it's an advisory program, but how it would be structured. Now, carriers or vendors can take the manual and from that automate. It's possible to do that. It's a lot of work, but you need to do all of the analysis for how the premium should be calculated. You need to take from the manual all of those list of limits, deductibles, all the tables, and put it into your system. So we offer products to help. If you look at the second product, what it is ISO Integrator. It takes all of the rating data from the manual and puts it in electronic format that allows you to then upload it to your system. So if you think of a list of valid limits, valid deductibles, class codes, class descriptions, that type of information, all in electronic format. What we take to the next step is ISO Electronic Rating Content, which is everything Integrator is, in terms of all of the rating data from the manual in electronic format. But in addition, and very importantly, it adds the technical specifications, the algorithms, if you will, the step-by-step process for how to calculate premium, how to do the forms attachment logic. So you say if it's this particular class code, you attach this, say, class code, the antique auto endorsement form. We give you the stat code assignment, as well as business edits. You can't have this form if you have that form because they're mutually exclusive. Okay, so it's all of the rating data, all of the rules for acting upon that rating data from the manual. Okay, and then rating service is that plus it comes in an automated format. So let's talk a little bit more about electronic rating content. You really should think of it as your jump start. It's all of the implementation level details for the line of business and the state that you can upload to your policy administration system. It is the jump start for anyone who writes and uses ISO for participation. Now, if we look and say, what lines of business does it cover? It covers the 9 major ISO commercial lines, which you can see here, business auto, commercial auto, etc. ISO personal lines, personal auto and home, as well as workers' comp. Okay. A lot of people are surprised that we have workers' comp, so it's, I just wanted to point that out, but we do have workers' comp, both bureau and independent states. Now, the major deliverables of electronic rating content, and just so you know, we will go in and actually look at some of the product so you get a sense for what these look like, but just to give you a level set before we do, I told you that electronic rating content is 2 things. It's all of the rating data, and it's all of the rules for acting upon that rating data. So the first is the formatted file of the rating data. It gives you not just the data, it gives you parent-child relationships. It gives you the field and field sizes, the keys for lookups. So it does allow you to actually create the whole hierarchy of the program. We give you all the limits, as I mentioned, so you can think of all the valid limits, valid deductibles as an example, all the system tables, so all of the advisory loss cost, increased limit factors. Very important, the class code, class description, mapping is included. And what I'd like to tell you and point out is that it's available in Microsoft Excel as well as XML. Okay? And that's true for the next, which is the technical specification, which is, as I said, there's the rating data and the rules for acting upon the rating data. That's the technical specification. It covers all of the premium calculations, both the coverage premium as well as total policy premium. We give you all of the forms attachment logic. Very, very important to have the forms attached properly, the endorsement forms. If there's an exclusionary endorsement form that should be attached, based on the characteristics of that policy, it's very important that that's attached. So we define for you all of the logic for when to attach a form. Okay? We do the premium stat code assignment, as mentioned. We use the ISO full stat plan and the validation messages. Again, that's the you can't have this form if you have that form type of error message. And for every deliverable that we do, we provide a sample test case so that you have a view of if you used this limit, this deductible, this rating territory, etc. All the rating data will define for you what we used, and then we will show you an example with all of the coverage premium, policy premium, and the forms that should be attached so that you can use that to verify your results as a good starting point to make sure that you've integrated to ERC correctly. Now, 2 other things to point out in terms of the deliverables. One, it comes with ongoing maintenance. Karlyn mentioned that there's a lot of circulars that are issued by ISO every year, and I think we all understand the need for that to keep current with new pricing because of the updating advisory loss costs. We're continually monitoring legislative actions and court rulings to update forms, etc. So there's a tremendous amount of data that we put out. With electronic rating content, we provide the ongoing maintenance as well. So as circulars come out, our team is responding to that and issuing new electronic rating content. It is all delivered via ISONet. Okay. And I know that Karlyn had mentioned too, in terms of currency, with how people might be behind. I think one thing to understand and know with electronic rating content is that the deliverables are far out. We're responding to and have April 2013 content out on ISONet as an example. So we're about 6 to 7 months in advance of the effective date is when we post the content to ISONet. So it gives you a good head start. Because the lead times can be longer, we expect to shorten them with electronic rating content because it's already analyzed and defined for you. But we do give you that extra lead time by producing it so far in advance. The second thing I wanted to point out in addition here is that we do this in conjunction with the line and actuarial resources who write ISO's manuals, forms, and circulars. As you can see from reading the manual or reading a particular circular, it is a lot of information, so reasonable people could look at that and come to different conclusions on what was meant. What we do is we work with the actual source, the line and actuarial resources who wrote the manual, to define what they meant by that at a precise level, and as I mentioned earlier, it's implementation level details. Okay? So let's just take a quick look, if we can, at the algorithm. So when we talk about a premium calculation, we say that we give you the details. Again, it's probably hard to read right here, but I do just want to walk you through quickly about the level of detail that's required and that is provided as part of our product offering. So in this case, we're calculating its commercial auto, and it's the vehicle, it's liability coverage premium, as you can see in the primary rule header up top. We do a little bit of defensive coding if there's no premium, but then we get into some vehicle types. You can see if it's a vehicle type is equal to truck, and the trailer how used is equal to not applicable, if you're following down along where the yellow conditions are. Those are two conditions that need to be met. If they're met, then here is the calculation. Premium is equal to the base premium times premium ILF. I won't read the whole thing, but you can see the level of detail where the parentheses are, the order of calculation, all is included and specified for you. And so as you can get from this example, we say that that's a truck, and trailer how used is equal to used in dumping operations, or it's not applicable. Well, there's another one right behind this, as if the trailer how used is a different type. So it's that level of detail that's provided with the product. Again, these come in Excel, Microsoft Excel, and XML, and our intention and how users are using it is to take and automatically upload this. Most use XML for the upload, and upload that directly to their policy administration system. As the examples that Karlyn presented with her research, plus as the polling question indicated, most of the pain and the time is spent around the analysis. Here it is already done for you, and it's getting it into the system. Here it is in an electronic format that you can upload to your system rather than having to manually build it. So we're excited about the product and believe it does provide good help for our insurer customers. So just one more example that I'd like to show you. That was the rules for acting upon the rating data. Here's an example of the rating data itself. Okay, so you can see that if it's PremOps and it's a class code of 1001, the advisory loss cost is 0.3, but if the class code, the next row, is 10015, it's 5.18. Okay, so I won't read them all, but you just get the idea that it's a very formatted file. Again, this comes in Excel and in XML. Okay, now in terms of our customer base, it truly is a wide-ranging base that ranges from startups with zero direct written premium to top Tier 1 insurers. And what we do, and this is important, is that ISO focuses and uses a partner model. And our model is to say we're going to focus on rating and rating only. And we're going to partner with policy administration vendors to deliver the product. And it's the partners that we rely on, and we're happy that we have MajescoMastek as a partner. And so they are an associate of our electronic rating content and have access to and have integrated this product into their product offering. And that's how we rely on getting that to market, and of course the the partners provide the services as well. Okay. Now, running quick on time, so I will just be very brief with the second product that we wanted to talk about is we have introduced a new product called ISO Circular Tracking Extract for all of those circulars that we talked about that we issue every day. It's a lot of work to track that, and everyone needs to track it so that they can then, at whatever point they're choosing to analyze it, know whether they're going to accept, reject, or modify that circular. So instead, we today put out circular alerts that give you the indication to go to ISONet to grab all the required information. We've enhanced that to now put all of the actionable information, all the required information, into one Excel file that we email to you every day based on the filter criteria that you provide to us, but be your line of business and your states and your service types. So you no longer have to go to ISONet one by one for each circular and grab the information. We compile it all into one format that you can then upload to your tracking system, whatever it might be, whether it's Access or SharePoint or Excel. All of that's in one consolidated file for you with all the information that you need. Okay? So I know that we want to keep to a fairly tight schedule, so I think at this point I will turn it back to James.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Let's do this. Got a couple questions here. First, one more poll question for our audience. Let me bring that up on the screen for everyone. And we're asking just what is your organization's status on the adoption of electronic rating content? So there are the options there. You use ISO rating content in manual format. You use it in electronic format. You do not use ISO rating content, but plan to do so, or you do not plan to use it. While folks are answering that question, Mark, let me keep you online here for a quick question that came in from Nate, was asking this: how far back does ERC support ISO versions?
A question we get asked a lot. We go back to 2010 for most lines of business. We have some that go back to 2009.
All right, Nate.
Okay. And we're continuing to build our history. Every release that we put out, we do keep, so we keep adding to that inventory. And as I said, in terms of that's backwards, and going forward, we're out to about April and May of 2013 with content out there now.
Okay, cool. Well, Nate, I hope that answers the question for you. Thank you for that question. And with that, I think most of you have had an opportunity to answer our second polling question. So let me bring those results up for all of you to see right now. And, just under half of you saying you don't use ISO rating content now, but you plan to do so. So there's a move afoot to move in that direction, and that probably is a large reason of why you have all joined us here today. So appreciate you giving us some feedback there. Let's do this. You heard during Mark's presentation that one of the partners up there of ISO is MajescoMastek, and I want to bring on one of their product managers there, Manoj Porwal, with us today on the presentation. And we're going to take probably, get 15 minutes here or so to move forward in conversation. Then we'll come back to the remaining questions that we have in the queue here. So Nimish and others, keep those questions coming in to us, and we'll come back to them. But at this point, I want to turn things over to Manoj. Thank you, sir, for joining us today, and the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you, James. Karlyn and Mark, they did a great job at really highlighting what are some of the traditional challenges that are faced by carrier, defining the new products, maintaining the existing product, and then meeting the ever-changing regulatory compliance needs. So Karlyn highlighted, and we realized that there's a lot of effort that goes into new product definition as well as maintaining existing product definitions. And then Mark really got us excited by showing us the potential that ISO ERC offers in terms of addressing some of these traditional challenges in maintaining product definition. Carriers' ability to address these challenges as they adopt ISO ERC will depend on the approaches they take. What I mean by that is, here are some of the considerations that carrier needs to weigh on when they start adopting ISO ERC. Obviously, top on the list is, should carrier go for do-it-yourself approach, or they choose to benefit from collective wisdom of multiple carriers in interpretation of ISO product definition. And what I mean by multiple benefit from collective wisdom is, if the carrier chooses to go with a vendor who has worked with multiple carriers, obviously vendor will bring that wisdom in speed and accuracy in interpretation of those ISO product definition. So that's the first consideration. Obviously, challenges in analyzing and interpretation was at the top of the list when we did a poll. Next on the list is the ability of carriers, tools, and systems in applying the secret sauce. All of us know that there are hardly, if there are any, insurer who are purely ISO-based product definitions or use ISO-based product definition. Most of the carriers have their unique sauce that they need to apply on the base ISO product definition. The important aspect to consider there is ability to quickly apply these carrier-specific changes and then preserve them through ISO circular upgrades. And then third point, which is again Karlyn highlighted in her presentation, was ability to communicate with multiple stakeholders that are involved in a complex product definition, whether it's the creation of a new product definition or adoption of ongoing circulars. So there is a large part of the effort that goes in collaboration between actuaries, product managers, business analysts, and IT developers, and carrier needs to look at their systems and tools and processes to make sure that there is a platform for collaboration there. Our next few slides, we'll spend time on details of each of these points and see what are the considerations, what best choices are available for carrier as they gear to adopt the ISO ERC. Again, in the poll, we learned that interpretation and implementation of ISO product definition into the carrier PAS is where most of the time is consumed. Now, ISO product definition as become can provide a great base for you to start on, but again, each carrier has a very unique flavor to the products they offer, and that is required to be competitive in the market. You need to differentiate yourself. So as much as ERC can provide you the base, carrier will still need to apply their unique secret sauce to differentiate themselves, and that's where the carrier have to analyze their capability to consume the content that ISO brings with minimal effort, and then see at their options in how accurately and speedily they can put their specific changes. So there is still a gap that needs to be bridged between what ISO ERC will bring and what carriers will need. That brings us to our next slide, where essentially your ability to apply the carrier-specific changes will depend on how well the policy administration system has been architected to receive these changes, and then on the top of that, apply your own changes. A layered product definition architecture will help to quickly build the customer-specific content without impacting the countrywide and state exception part of the ISO-based product definition. So it's very important to have a tool that allows for the separation of content, customer-specific content, from the ISO-based content. Okay? And a layered architecture will also help not only in applying the carrier-specific changes, but it will also help in preserving the carrier-specific changes while adopting to ISO circulars, future ISO circulars. A layered architecture approach essentially help you preserve the changes as they are made available by the ISO by bringing them at the appropriate layer without impacting the customer-specific content. On the slide, you will notice that when the countrywide definitions and the state-specific definitions were changed through future ISO circulars, because of a layered architecture, the customer, if they have implemented the specific content at the customer-specific content layer, they can still be kept intact while applying the rates and factors that were updated by the ISO circular. So key there is to understand that the tool provides a capability to seamlessly accept the future upgrades. Now, the third important point on the consideration was ability for multiple stakeholders involved in a product definition to collaborate. What we mean by collaboration is, as Karlyn highlighted, the product definition is a complex task that involves people with the multiple skills, actuaries, product managers, business analysts, and IT developers, and requires a seamless collaboration between these multiple stakeholders for achieving the speed and accuracy in defining the new product definitions or maintaining existing product definitions or meeting the regulatory compliance needs. What is really required is a tool that has been designed to facilitate the seamless collaboration between the business users and IT users by providing them a platform which has been designed for business users in mind, keeping in mind their requirement to perform the often repetitive tasks of rate revision, rates and factor table maintenance, defining business rules, or creation of list of values. So a tool that essentially is geared towards business users to help them do that job easily and repeatedly. Similarly, there will be aspects of the product definition that will require the involvement of the IT team, and what you require in the tool is ability for IT developers to do the routine tasks on object model extensions or extending those onto UI and your workflow. So essentially a tool that addresses the needs of both business users and IT developers or multiple stakeholders involved and allow them to seamlessly collaborate to achieve newer product definitions or maintenance of existing product definition with the speed and accuracy. So what is MajescoMastek offering on electronic rating content? What we are really bringing to the table is, as a part of our base offering, we will provide all the countrywide and state exception content. So you get the base product definitions from the ISO bundled as a part of our base offering. our layered architecture or approach to content allows us to define the customer-specific changes in the customer-specific installation and keep them separate in a customer-specific layer. And then the seamless ISO updates, as they are made available by ISO circulars, they can be applied on the base product definition by the customer themselves using the tools, or they are available as a service from MajescoMastek. Important aspect there is ability to preserve the customer-specific changes as these future ISO upgrades are applied. So essentially, our offering there is ISO ERC for personal and commercial lines, product delivered seamlessly and with ease. You can choose to do it yourself or use our service to get that. James, that was the content I wanted to cover. With that, back to you, James.
Happy to jump in here and remind everyone in our audience that we have about 10 minutes or so that we're going to take for Q&A at this point. As we do move into our Q&A, let me also do this. I mentioned at the beginning we have a survey that we would like you all to fill out. It gives us feedback about these presentations, so that is up for everyone right now. You can also find that within the information box on our webcast player here today. And again, folks, you still have time to get your questions in. Meredith has been sending some questions in to us and wants to ask this question. I think, Mark, I'm going to send it your way, asking this: what is the level of usage of ERC within large carriers out there?
Okay, fair question. We do have, as I said earlier, our ranges from startups with zero premium all the way up to tier 1 customers. So our range is quite broad. We do have ERC in production for all lines and states at many locations. We have over 30 customers using the products today.
All right, Meredith, thank you for your question there. Tommy has been on with us since the beginning, was asking about a copy of some of the slides to review, and Tommy, those are available to you and everyone else on today's event. A PDF is available. Just go into that information widget that you see at the bottom of your webcast player, and you'll see it's right there, the presentations slide PDF, and you can download that so you can review those materials. Let's move on with some more questions out here. Karlyn, coming back your direction earlier in the presentation as we were setting the stage here, you mentioned 14 to 18 months, not unheard of as the time to market for new products. Question about with rating content delivered electronically, to what extent either do you anticipate that time can be reduced, or any anecdotes you have of where that has been an actual time savings for some customers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And first of all, let me say I don't have any statistical data on it yet, because not enough carriers have been using it for 14 to 18 months to be able to get statistically relevant data. What I am hearing, though, is that the time savings is significant. More than weeks, we're definitely talking months of improvement in terms of speed to market. I've heard stories about carriers going from, literally 6 months to get something into the system to being able to get it into the system in weeks and really spending only time doing basic testing. So theoretically, my projection will be that we're going to see some very significant increases in speed to market by being able to use both the pre-interpreted data as well as being able to pull that data directly into the policy admin system.
And Karlyn, let me do this. Let me address another question your way. Meredith can definitely envision designing a new policy admin system to support ERC. Wondering, could there be significant changes required to installed systems that are already there for ERC to work?
Well, that's an excellent question as well. So a number of the policy admin systems out there, like MajescoMastek, have already created the capabilities to absorb that data coming in. Now, depending on whether or not the vendor that you currently are using has that capability, you may be able to get it simply by taking an update of your current policy admin system. But if you're using a legacy system, it's going to be extremely difficult to use the ERC and to be able to get the kinds of benefits that your competition is going to be getting. So if product development is something that is part of your strategic core competencies, if you're looking at needing more flexibility, certainly ERC has the potential to save a lot of time and a lot of money, and it's definitely worth taking a look at the solution that you're using to see whether or not it can take this content or whether you should be considering a new solution.
Joy Deep and others also still again asking about slides. The download for the slides in the information widget, bottom of your webcast player. So just open up the information. That's where you can get that widget there for the slides. So you can all have access to that. We'll continue on here with questions for our panel here, and moving on over to Jeffrey out there. And this might be a question that you can all tackle for a moment or so. Maybe, Mark, I'll start with you. And that would be to the idea of, does the content delivered electronically reduce workload for IT, and how does it do that? Have you heard, again, stories, anecdotes, Mark, about how that is starting to reduce the workload for the IT staffs out there?
Sure. The short answer is, does it reduce work effort for IT? Absolutely, yes. And the reason we say that is because the artifacts that we provide, the rating content and the rules for acting upon it, come in XML and Excel. Most IT groups work with the XML, do a one-time implementation effort to integrate that content into their policy admin. Once that's done, each upgrade that they take when they choose to take new ISO content is simply downloading it from ISOnet and importing it into the policy admin. That integration that was done up front is reused again and again each update that they take. So it's the same program. So at that point, then, it's just simply deciding what you choose to do at a carrier level. And as Majesco pointed out, your carrier deviations are preserved with their tool. So overall, quite a reduction, yes.
Manoj, anything to add to that?
Absolutely, Dan. So, I mean, introduction of ERC as help there, and then vendor offering, Mark highlighted about preserving the carrier-specific changes as ISO circulars are applied. That's a huge saving. Traditionally, that has been a challenge with multiple carriers, that how do we preserve our changes as these future ISO upgrades are brought in. And that has been an area where IT has spent most significant amount of time preserving the changes that was already done through the future upgrades.
And Karlyn, one last, anything to add? Your direction.
No, I'm going to agree with both of them. I mean, anytime that you can pull data in electronically and have it, ready to be loaded up, it significantly impacts the workload of IT, absolutely.
All right. And Mark, I think this one's coming back to you, came in as you were presenting here. Is work in progress to provide the 2010 version of BOP?
Well, actually, it's already there, yes. Yes, it's right. Available and it's out on ISOnet. Actually, I will admit, whoever caught that question, I probably should have taken 2006 off there. That was something I noticed as I was talking. That was when we originally did it. It was 2006. We have content for BOP out to April of 2013. So the 2010 has been out there and available for quite some time, yes.
All right, well, good on that. I want to share some follow-up info for our listeners here that they can absolutely come back and listen to this presentation on demand. We have recorded the entire event. You can use one of the links that's on the screen right now if you wish. Also, we're going to be sending out in the next day or so, you'll get a personalized follow-up email. That'll, again, have details and a link to today's presentation on demand. One final mention on the slides, they're available from the Information tab. When you open that up as well, you'll see a couple links. One will take you to an ISO ERC page. There's also our survey. If you didn't get a chance to fill that out while it was on the screen, you can open up the survey from the information tab and get more info. So I encourage you all to do that. Also, when you get that reminder email, if you've got colleagues that you think can benefit from tuning into this event, forward that on or forward on the URL you see on the screen so they can come back and take care and register and join us for the on-demand version. So with that, we do want to extend a big thank you to all of you for attending today's presentation, P&C Carriers, Better Speed to Market and Regulatory Compliance with ISO ERC. Again, brought to you by MajescoMastek and broadcast by Insurance and Technology. This webinar is copyrighted 2012 by United Business Media, LLC. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted, if that is the case, by Insurance and Technology, and MajescoMastek, and the guests are solely responsible for their content, and the speakers solely responsible for their content and their opinions as well. On behalf of our guests, Karlyn, Mark, and Manoj, do appreciate all of you taking time to join us today. My name is James Hilliard, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.